after being mocked and disowned by her family for her useless passion. A brilliant game developer uses her creation to not only achieve massive success, but to publicly expose her brother's criminal betrayal in the most epic way imaginable. What will you do? Lizzie, sell some of your little digital tiaras, my brother sneered. 2 weeks later, the useless game developer they disowned was acquired for $300 million. Guess whose financial ruin got a front row seat, hey? Everyone. So, I'm Elizabeth. And I never figured I'd be telling my story like this. But let's just say my family's worst nightmare became my greatest success. I'm not here for pity. Just to show you what happens when the forgotten daughter stops asking for a seat and builds her own empire instead. It's quite a ride. The phone call felt like a scene I had rehearsed 1,000 times in my head. A slow-motion car crash I was forced to watch over and over. I was in my apartment in Austin. A stark, clean space filled with monitors and servers that hummed with potential. It was a universe away from the cluttered, suffocating sentimentality of my family home. On the other end of the line, my father's voice was a flat line. A monotone drone of utter defeat. He was explaining the foreclosure on their house, framing it as some tragic, unavoidable market downturn. A storm they just couldn't weather. He kept repeating how Leo, my brilliant, business-minded older brother, was working tirelessly around the clock to salvage the situation. I was just the spectator. The quiet daughter expected to offer a few useless words of sympathy and then disappear back into the background. Then I heard him. Leo. In the background. His voice cut through the phone line, laced with the casual, dismissive cruelty he had perfected over 2 decades of practice. What will you do? Lizzie, sell some of your little digital tiaras. Something inside me didn't break. It clicked. It locked into place with the cold, satisfying finality of a vault door swinging shut. All the years of simmering resentment, of being sidelined, patronized, and erased, solidified into a diamond-hard resolve. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't give them the satisfaction. I cut my father off mid-sentence. I see, I said, my voice perfectly level, devoid of any emotion. I have to go. I hung up before he could reply, giving them no drama, no emotional fuel to feed on. I turned to my main development rig, the glow of the triple monitors illuminating my face. My fingers flew across the keyboard. A blur of motion. I opened a secure messaging app. My co-developer Chloe's handle, Axiom, glowed at the top of my contacts. My message was short, devoid of emotion. It was a command. Axiom. Phase 2 is a go. Liquidate the test assets and prepare for full public launch. We're going live. In that moment, my game stopped being a passion project. It became a weapon. That level of coldness doesn't come from nowhere. It's forged over a lifetime of small, soul-crushing dismissals until your heart learns to armor itself. My family didn't see me. They saw a weird, quiet girl who was a footnote in the grand, important story of my brother, Leo. He was the sun. I was just a forgotten planet in his orbit. The first time I truly understood this, I was 13 years old. I had just won a national youth coding competition. My project was a simple AI chatbot. But for a kid in her bedroom running on cheap pizza and sheer obsession, it felt like I had invented fire. I was buzzing, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. I couldn't wait to show them the trophy. But they weren't there. They were at Leo's regional soccer championship, a game he spent mostly on the bench, chewing on orange slices. When I finally got home, clutching the heavy, gold-plated award, my father barely looked up from the television. He patted me on the head. A gesture he might give a dog. That's nice, sweetie, he said, before launching into a breathless play-by-play of Leo's one almost goal. My trophy. My national achievement. My proof that I was good at something. Ended up propping open the garage door because the spring was broken. It collected dust for a month before I quietly took it to the curb on trash day. Then, when I was 17, I saved up for over a year from a miserable part-time job, scooping ice cream to build my own high-end gaming PC. It was my masterpiece. Every component researched, chosen, and installed by me. The day I finished it, The day I powered it on, and the custom liquid cooling glowed to life in a swirl of neon blue. Our house was chaos. But not for me. My parents were throwing a massive surprise party for Leo. He had just gotten a new convertible as an early graduation gift for getting into a decent business school. My achievement was invisible. The only time anyone spoke to me that entire night was when my mother, flustered and holding a tray of appetizers, asked me to use my little computer skills to fix the Wi-Fi so Leo's friends could stream music in the backyard. I was a technician at my brother's celebration. Just a useful appliance. But the breaking point, the moment that severed any lingering, pathetic hope I had for their validation, came in college. A legendary game designer, my personal idol, was holding a small, intensive seminar in New York. It was a career-making opportunity. A chance to get in a room with the person who inspired me to even start coding. The ticket was $2,000. I begged my parents for a loan, explaining how critical it was, how it could change everything for me. They refused. Money was tight, they said, and it was a frivolous expense for a silly hobby that would never lead anywhere. A week later, I was scrolling through social media in my tiny dorm room, eating a packet of ramen. And there it was, my mother's proud post. It was a picture of Leo, grinning, standing next to a stock ticker. The caption read, "So proud of our boy, investing his first $10,000 to learn the stock market, a valuable real-world education." They gave him $10,000 to gamble with, calling it an education. While my $2,000 career investment was a frivolous hobby, I sat there in my tiny, silent room, the glow of the phone screen on my face, and I finally, truly understood. Their approval was never on the table. It was a currency reserved exclusively for my brother. And from that moment on, I stopped trying to earn it. After college, I was struggling. My first indie game, a small passion project, had failed to find an audience. I was living on instant noodles and the dregs of my student loans, pouring every waking hour into a new, far more ambitious idea. It was during this time that the real disaster struck. The phone call came from my mother. Her voice choked with tears. I knew were more for herself than for anyone else. Leo, their financial genius, the family's golden boy, had made a catastrophic investment with the family's entire life savings. The house, our childhood home, was in foreclosure, ignoring years of hurt. A genuine pang of panic and a foolish desire to help propelled me into action. I drove the 3 hours back home. I found them in the living room, surrounded by cardboard boxes and the thick, suffocating air of despair. I didn't waste time on platitudes. I set up my laptop on the coffee table and presented the prototype of my new game, Ethelgard. I didn't just show them the dragons and castles. I passionately explained its core mechanic, a revolutionary, self-regulating in-game economy modeled on real-world financial markets. I showed them the data, the complex algorithms, the monetization potential, the clear and obvious path to profitability. I wasn't asking for a handout. I was presenting a legitimate business plan. I just need a small loan, I pleaded, my voice cracking with an earnestness I hated. A few $1,000s to keep the alpha test servers online. It's enough to attract investors. We can fix this. I can fix this. Leo, the man who had just single-handedly bankrupted them, laughed. He actually laughed out loud. It was a short, ugly, condescending bark of a sound. The bank doesn't accept digital gold. Litsi, he scoffed, not even glancing at the screen. This is pathetic. Grow up and face reality. I looked to my parents, my last shred of hope. I saw them exchange a look. A silent, loaded conversation that took less than a second. And in that glance, I saw my answer. They chose him. They always chose him. The next week, I found out through an aunt that they had taken out a final, cripplingly high-interest loan against what little they had left. Not for my viable, data-backed business plan. They gave the money to Leo, so he could try to win back their fortune on the market. They chose to double down on the son who had ruined them, rather than place a single, tiny bet on the daughter who was offering them a lifeline. That was the final betrayal. It wasn't just dismissal anymore. It was a choice. And they had made it perfectly clear. I drove back to Austin in a haze of cold fury. I sat in my sparse apartment. The foreclosure notice for my server hosting account, blinking on my screen like a tiny red bomb. I was ready to delete the entire Ethelgard project. To just give up and get a pointless job somewhere. My spirit was completely broken. That's when my screen lit up with a video call from Axiom. I answered, expecting a final, sympathetic goodbye from my online partner whom I'd never met in person. Instead, I saw a woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense expression that radiated competence. "I'm at the Austin airport," she said, her voice crisp. "Send me your address. I'm taking an Uber." Axiom was Chloe, a whip-smart market analyst from Chicago who had stumbled on my dev blog. She had sensed the absolute despair in my messages and, without a single word of warning, had booked a flight. She walked into my apartment, took one look at my face, and completely ignored my stammering attempt at an apology for the mess. She didn't offer pity. She offered a plan. For the next 5 hours, she dug through my code, my economic models, my monetization strategies. Her focus, absolute. Finally, she leaned back in my cheap desk chair, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across her face. "This isn't a game, Elizabeth," she said, her voice electric with discovery. "It's a predictive financial engine disguised as one. It's brilliant." The next morning, she transferred $20,000 of her own life savings into my account. "Let's show them what a little digital tiara is really worth," she said, her eyes glinting. Her faith was the spark I needed to reignite the fire. Together, we refined and launched Ethelgard. The game didn't just find an audience, it became a global phenomenon. But not for its fantasy quests or epic dragon battles. It went viral for its economy. Players were using its in-game market to predict real-world stock and crypto fluctuations with terrifying accuracy. Financial publications like Forbes and the Wall Street Journal started running articles, not in their gaming sections, but in their business pages, analyzing the Ethelgard market as a shockingly accurate economic simulator. The buzz attracted a massive round of venture capital that left me breathless. My life transformed overnight. I went from eating instant noodles to being the CEO of my own multi-million-dollar tech startup, Arcadia Games. We moved into a sleek, glass-walled office in downtown Austin that overlooked the entire city. I hired a team of brilliant engineers and designers who respected my vision. I wasn't the weird, quiet girl in the background anymore. I was a force. With Arcadia Games, a certified, multi-million-dollar success. My family's tone changed with whiplash-inducing speed. The years of dismissive silence were replaced by a sudden, cloying interest. And then, one day, Leo showed up, unannounced at my office. He was wearing an expensive suit that looked like a costume on him, and a rehearsed expression of deep remorse. He launched into a polished, sickening apology, blaming his past cruelty on the immense stress of managing the family's finances. It was nauseating. He then made his pitch. He offered his expertise to help Arcadia Games navigate its increasingly complex finances. To prepare us for a potential IPO, he framed it as his one chance to finally make things right with me. To prove he was the brother he should have been all along. I was about to have security escort him out. But then my phone started buzzing. It was my mother. Then, a text from my father. They had orchestrated this entire ambush. They begged me, guilt-tripped me, painted this beautiful, delusional picture of a perfect, restored family. "He's your brother, Licia. He just wants to help. Please." Against every instinct screaming in my gut, I relented. I gave him a consultant role with limited view, only access to our financial data dashboards. I thought, what harm could he possibly do? It was read-only access. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. Leo didn't want to help. He wanted to destroy me and take what was mine. He used that insider access to commit a federal crime. He secretly scraped our internal metrics, manipulated the data to make us look unstable, and then fed this fraudulent information to a rival investment firm. He was building a false case for a hostile takeover, making my company look like a wounded animal ready to be picked off for cheap. Simultaneously, he started giving me terrible financial advice in our weekly check-in calls. "You should over-leverage our assets against this new crypto," he would say, with false confidence. Or, "We need to reallocate our R&D budget to these high-risk ventures." Every single piece of advice was a carefully placed landmine, designed to secretly weaken our stock value and make Arcadia Games an easy, affordable target for his co-conspirators. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was wire fraud. And he was too arrogant to think I would ever be smart enough to catch him. The trap was sprung at the annual Global Gaming Awards in Los Angeles. It's the Oscars of our industry. A massive, globally televised event, held in a glittering auditorium. Aethelgard was nominated for the prestigious Game of the Year award. And I had invited my family, my hopeful, beaming parents, and my smug, confident brother Leo, and seated them right in the front row. I wanted them to have a perfect view of the carnage. The atmosphere was electric. The lights, the orchestral music, the palpable tension, as the presenters began their preamble for the final, most important award of the night. My phone vibrated in my clutch. A text from Leo. "Hostile bid is live. Thanks for the nest egg. Little sister. Should have stayed in your fantasy world." His arrogance was absolutely breathtaking, and it was about to be his downfall. A cold, thin smile touched my lips, just as the announcer's voice boomed through the auditorium. "And the winner for Game of the Year is Aethelgard, by Arcadia Games." The room erupted in applause. I walked to the stage, my movements calm and deliberate as I accepted the heavy, gleaming award. I stepped up to the microphone, the lights hot on my face. The broadcast cameras cut to my family in the front row. Leo was clapping enthusiastically. "Avide." Predatory grin plastered on his face. "Thank you," I began, my voice clear and steady, amplified, for millions to hear. "I want to thank my incredible team, and my partner Chloe. And of course, I have to thank my family for their unwavering support, especially my brother, Leo, who recently taught me a very valuable lesson about economics." The camera zoomed in on his beaming face. He gave a little nod, soaking in what he thought was praise. "You see," I continued, my eyes fixed on the camera lens, "Leo's financial advice was so unique. It inspired us to build a new security protocol within the Aethelgard economy." Behind me, the giant screens that were supposed to be showing game footage flickered to life. But it wasn't dragons or heroes. It was a sleek, real-time data visualization of the Aethelgard in-game stock market. Our security team recently detected a malicious user attempting to crash our virtual economy using sophisticated, real-world market manipulation tactics. It was a fascinating and highly illegal attack. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink into the silent room. We traced the user. The screen zoomed in on a single, glowing red node in a sea of green, to an IP address registered to Leo's new investment firm. The screen split. On one side were Leo's encrypted chat logs with the rival firm, laying out the entire hostile takeover plan in his own words. On the other, his transaction history within our game, where he had beta tested his market-crashing algorithms using a dummy account. And right in the center, the lines of code I personally wrote to flag and trace his specific digital fingerprint. The evidence was absolute, undeniable, televised globally. I looked directly into the main broadcast camera, a final, cold smile on my face. "All of this evidence," I said calmly, "has been forwarded to the Securities and Exchange Commission." The cameras cut back to Leo. His face was ashen, a mask of pure, abject horror. The smug grin was gone, replaced by the slack-jawed terror of a man whose entire world had just evaporated on live television. As the crowd's stunned silence erupted into a tidal wave of gasps and frantic whispers, two plain-clothed security officers quietly approached his seat. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Leo was under federal investigation for wire fraud and conspiracy to commit market manipulation. The hostile takeover bid collapsed overnight, taking the rival firm's reputation down with it in a blaze of scandal. The story of the Game of the Year takedown went viral, turning Arcadia Games from a success story into an absolute legend. A week later, a tech giant acquired us. The final number was $300 million. My parents, of course, called. They were a hysterical, weeping mess of pleas and accusations. A symphony of self-pity. I let them exhaust themselves, listening silently to their frantic excuses for Leo. Then, when they finally ran out of air, I calmly informed them that I had bought their old house out of foreclosure. I could hear the wave of pathetic, sobbing relief on the other end of the line. Then, I cut their joy short. The deed is in my name, I said, on my voice as precise as a surgeon's scalpel. I have hired a property manager. Your first month's rent is due on the 1st. I hung up the phone before they could utter another word, severing the toxic financial and emotional cord for good. The final scene of my old life wasn't one of revenge, but of peace. I'm on a private jet with Chloe, scouting locations in Tokyo for our new global headquarters. We're partners, equals, co-founders of a new world we built from scratch. Looking out the window at the endless expanse of clouds below, I realized it was never really about the money. It was about building a world with its own rules. A world that couldn't be manipulated or dismissed by the people who refused to see me. A world where I could finally, definitively win. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had found my real family. If you enjoyed this story,